Yes, Denver Broncos. Things are heating up around the Denver Broncos, and we need to talk about something very important. We all know the quarterback position can change everything in the NFL, and right now Bo Nix is once again at the center of a major debate. Some people are worried about the way he plays against zone coverage, while others believe the criticism is being blown out of proportion. I want to know which side you are on. Do you think Bo's footwork and decision-making against zone are a real concern? Or do you believe he is simply a young quarterback still developing and getting better every season? Write your opinion below. And if you have been a Denver Broncos fan for more than 15 years, hit that like button hard. Because today, we need to take a very close look at what is really happening with Bo Nix. Now, the main question is simple. Should Broncos fans actually be worried about Bo Nix when defenses play zone coverage? This discussion started with a breakdown comparing Bo against man coverage with Bo against zone coverage. When Bo was shown facing man coverage, everything looked clean. His drop was steady. His feet were under control. The timing of the play matched the timing of his movement. He reached the top of his drop, made the read, and delivered the football with rhythm. That is exactly what you want to see from your quarterback. Then came the example against zone coverage, and the criticism changed. The argument was that Bo's feet became more active. Instead of looking calm and controlled, he appeared to bounce around more inside the pocket. The suggestion was that his mechanics and processing changed when the defense moved away from man coverage. But there's a major problem with comparing those two plays directly. The pockets were completely different. On the first throw, Bo had a clean pocket. There was no immediate pressure forcing him away from his spot. He could execute the drop exactly as the play was designed. On the second example, the pocket was collapsing. Interior pressure was coming toward him through the middle, forcing Bo to move to his right. That matters because when a quarterback has pressure coming directly into his space, his feet are obviously going to look different. He cannot simply stand there, hit the final step of his drop, and throw as if nobody is around him. He has to survive the play. He has to create space. And that is exactly what Bo was trying to do. So when somebody looks at that second play and says his feet suddenly became too active because he was facing zone coverage, Broncos fans should remember what else was happening. The quarterback was being pushed away from his original position. Comparing that movement to a perfectly clean pocket does not give us the complete picture. That does not mean Bo did everything perfectly. There was still something he could have done better. The throw to Courtland Sutton came just a little late. We are not talking about a huge mistake. We are talking about a fraction of a second. If Bo releases that football slightly earlier, the result could have been very different. The placement itself was impressive, especially considering that he had already been forced to move because of the pressure. And this is where the entire conversation needs perspective. Bo Nix is not a finished quarterback. He is entering his third NFL season. There are still things he has to improve, and nobody should pretend otherwise. But there is a difference between identifying an area where a young quarterback can develop and acting as though that area proves something is seriously wrong with his game. The numbers presented in the breakdown show exactly why the condition of the pocket matters so much. Over his first two seasons, when Bo operated from a clean pocket, he completed 69.5% of his passes. He threw 20 touchdowns compared with 6 interceptions and produced a passer rating of 98.9. Those are extremely strong numbers. Then look at what happened when he was under pressure. His completion percentage dropped to 47.2%. He threw 8 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, with a quarterback rating of 60.8. That is obviously a major difference. But think about what those numbers are really telling us. Are they telling us that Bo Nix suddenly forgets how to play quarterback? Or are they showing us that a young quarterback working inside a complicated offense is still learning how to remain consistent when NFL defenders are collapsing the pocket around him? That second explanation makes a lot more sense when you look at the development that has already happened. Pressure changes quarterbacks. It changes their timing, their platform, their vision, and sometimes the order in which they process a play. That challenge becomes even greater for someone still adjusting to the speed of professional football. And Bo has already shown that he can adjust. One of the biggest issues early in the 2025 season was his pocket poise. At times, Bo tried to make too many throws without having his body properly set. He attempted off-platform throws too frequently instead of allowing the structure of the offense to work for him. That was a legitimate issue, but it did not stay the same throughout the season. The involvement of Davis Webb became important in Bo's development, and after the Dallas Cowboys game, the quarterback began looking significantly calmer. That is something Broncos country should pay attention to because improvement matters more than simply identifying the original problem. A young quarterback having an issue is normal. A young quarterback recognizing it, receiving coaching, and improving is exactly what you want. Former NFL quarterback Chase Daniel also raised a point about Bo's mechanics that deserves attention. His explanation was that there were moments when Bo's feet moved too quickly compared with the development of the routes. In simple terms, Bo sometimes arrived at the top of his drop before his receivers were actually ready.
Then his internal clock started moving too fast. He began going through his progressions before the play had fully developed, and that could lead him toward the check down earlier than necessary. That is an important distinction. The problem was not necessarily that Bo could not see what was happening. The problem was that the timing between his feet and the routes did not always match. That is coachable. And again, nobody should expect a quarterback entering year 3 to have every detail of his game completely mastered. This is where some of the criticism becomes unfair if we remove the development process from the conversation. Yes, Bo has had moments when his footwork needed improvement. Yes, pressure has affected his efficiency. Yes, there are still situations in which his timing can become cleaner. But we also have 2 seasons of evidence showing that he is progressing. Think about the natural path we have already watched. Year 1 was the introduction. We saw the athletic ability. We saw the arm talent. We saw flashes of what Bo could eventually become. But he was still learning the NFL, and he was not yet a quarterback ready to carry everything on his shoulders immediately. Then came year 2. And we saw another part of his personality as a quarterback. The comeback ability. The clutch factor. The willingness to keep playing even when Denver was behind. Bo helped lead comeback after comeback, with 8 fourth-quarter comebacks referenced from last season. That ability to perform when the game becomes uncomfortable is important because some quarterbacks can spend years in this league without consistently developing that trait. Bo already showed it. Now we reach year 3, and that is what makes this conversation so interesting. What comes next? We do not know exactly what year 3, barrio NIX, will look like yet. But the signs discussed in the breakdown suggest that the offense around him is also changing in ways that could help him take another step. One of the biggest changes is the relationship with Davis Webb. The communication between Webb and Bo has been described as smooth and clean, and there is a very simple reason why that relationship can be so valuable. Sean Payton is responsible for the entire football team. Bo needs someone who can focus specifically on what is happening with the offense.